President Trump just pulled the plug on thousands of Somali immigrants living under temporary protected status. And the timing is no coincidence. This comes as massive fraud scandals rock Minnesota with billions in taxpayer dollars allegedly stolen through coordinated scams. But here's what the mainstream media will not tell you about who's really behind this systematic theft. You see, this is not just about immigration policy. This is about your money that's being used and stolen right out from under you. We're talking about fraudulent schemes that have drained billions from programs meant to help Americans. Your tax dollars meant for feeding hungry kids and supporting working families allegedly funneled into luxury cars, overseas bank accounts. Senator Marsha Blackburn is pushing legislation that would make any fraud against taxpayers a deportable offense. Sounds good to me. So think about that. Right now, you can steal from American taxpayers and still keep your status. Meanwhile, hardworking Americans struggle to pay their bills while watching their tax money disappear into what investors are calling one of the largest fraud operations in U.S. history. Now, speaking of protecting your hard-earned money from government mismanagement, let me tell you about today's sponsor. That's right. As we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing we've all learned is that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan. It's a gamble. And for over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves and the people they love by diversifying their wealth with gold and silver. Now, look, nobody knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing is for sure, in an uncertain world, real wealth isn't digital. It's physical, it's lasting, and it's yours. So when you're sitting around the table with your friends, remember the best gift you can give isn't under the tree, it's peace of mind. And that is what Noble Gold delivers, peace of mind, 1 ounce at a time. So as the new year begins, take one smart step towards a safer future and visit nextnewsgold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's nextnewsgold.com. Don't leave your future to chance. And we'll make sure that's updated next time. But back to the massive crackdown on fraud that's shaking Minnesota to its core. This is the twist nobody saw coming. It isn't just about temporary status. ICE is actively surging into Minneapolis right now. And sources say this is only the beginning. The fraud schemes allegedly involve fake daycare centers, phony nonprofits, and elaborate welfare scams that investigators say operated like organized crime. And guess what? Some of these operations allegedly had political protection at the highest levels of Minnesota government. I'm talking about Tim Walz. Here's a hit from Fox. Trump administration ends temporary protected status for thousands of Somalis in the United States. The official White House notice, you can see it here. Trump ends TPS for thousands of Somalis. We're putting Americans first. Secretary Noem. The White House announcement is setting the stage, but wait until you see the social media explosion that followed. Of course, cat turd. It's always so funny to have to reference cat turd. Bye-bye scammers. He's quote tweeting Caroline Leavitt. President Trump ends temporary protected status for thousands of Somalis. In U.S., Somali migrants with TPS will be required to leave the country by March 17th. Damn! If you're a TPS, if you're temporary protected status Somali, you are done. You have to leave the country. Goodbye. So the reaction is only beginning. It's about to get even more aggressive. Cat turd picks it up again. Good start, but we should all deport them, Somalis who do nothing but scam and leech on our tax dollars. They have nothing positive to offer our country. They only take, he was quote tweeting Bill Malhusian, breaking DHS to end temporary protected status. They'll be required to leave by the 17th of March. From celebrating the decision to demanding more action, here's your pro tip. Watch how this escalates, targeting specific officials. Elmer Fraud, is releasing dangerous criminals now into the streets of Minnesota to deflect from his billion-dollar Somali fraud scam. Who could Elmer Fraud be? I can only think, right? Quote, tweeting the Homeland Security Department, Governor Tim Walz has refused to cooperate with ICE and instead release nearly 470 criminal illegal aliens back onto the streets of Minnesota to terrorize American citizens. That's an official statement from the Department of Homeland Security. They're declaring that Governor Tim Walz is terrorizing Americans. Remember when the DHS just started? It was right after 9/11. They consolidated all the intelligence agencies and everything under one umbrella, the Department of Homeland Security. And they were going after the terrorists. Remember? You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Remember George W. drawing a line? We're going into Iraq, even though they had nothing to do with it. Anyway. But look at where we are in this country now. The Department of Homeland Security is declaring that Tim Walz is unleashing terror on the streets of his state. 470 criminal illegals back into the streets of Minnesota to terrorize Americans. It's common sense. Criminal illegal aliens should not be released back onto our streets. We are calling on Governor Tim Walz to stop the process. The narrative is shifting from targeting individuals to systemic change. This is where the policy machinery kicks in. Newsmax, all fraud that is committed against the U.S. taxpayer and our government would be deemed to be a deportable or denaturalization offense. That's Marsha Blackburn on the proposed legislation that would add fraud as a deportable offense under the Immigration and Nationality Act. Blackburn's proposed legislation gives us the legal framework, but watch Trump supporters frame the broader impact. Mario Nafal, Trump ends TPS status for thousands. Trump just axed it. No more fake protected status keeping them here. Biden's giveaway scam is over. Back to Somalia they go. Minneapolis fraud central hit the hardest. Oh, yeah. So the breaking news alerts are amplifying this message across multiple platforms, but now we need to see the evidence behind the claims. Newsmax, a huge problem. We have to address it. We have to hold people's feet to the fire, says Representative Jason Smith on the alleged fraud in Minnesota's welfare system. Democrats are ignoring the issue. From allegations to accountability, congressional leaders are demanding action on the claims. Leader John Thune on the alleged misuse of federal funds in Minnesota, ensuring that federal taxpayer dollars are being spent responsibly and effectively on the people they're supposed to help. Ought to be a no-brainer, you'd think, right? So leadership's now calling for responsibility, but the bombshell numbers are dropping. Trump's HUD Secretary Scott Turner has exposed a generational betrayal. The Democrats gave Minnesota $84 million for hundreds of deceased tenants. Eric Daugherty continues, let me repeat, we gave nearly $100 million in federal tax dollars to people who aren't even alive. Let's go and listen to what he has to say. This is the HUD Secretary.
We have boots on the ground in Minnesota, and through our fraud prevention, we have found that there is likely over $84 million in eligible assistance that was given to the state of Minnesota during the Biden administration, including almost $500,000 in improper assistance to over 500 dead tenants. And so you think about that, Tony, over $84 million of hardworking taxpayer money that was shelled out during the Biden administration in improper assistance and serving over 500 dead people with almost $500,000 of assistance. This is a lack of stewardship. It's gross negligence. But I'm grateful at this time that our team on the ground has found these improper payments, and we will hold those accountable that are responsible for this.
We will hold them accountable. I certainly hope so. That was the HUD Secretary. Shocking revelations. Now setting up Trump's most direct threat. Citizenship revocation is now on the table. Here's the president himself. We're going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens.
We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast.
Hell yeah, let's go.
And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came. We're throwing you right in jail.
Oh, yeah. President Trump threatening citizenship to cutting off entire cities. Trump expanding his enforcement strategy starting February 1st. We're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals.
We're giving 90-day notices to places like California, Scott. Right away, we're going to send out that notice. Who would bill the federal government as people poured into the state to send those people back because no country can afford to do it? No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it. But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts. Additionally, starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities.
The party's over. The policy announcements pivot to Trump's broader agenda, but the fraud investigation is expanding. Here's President Trump on the tarmac.
We had a wonderful speech in front of great people in Detroit, mostly in the car business, and we're setting records in manufacturing. It's going very well. I think people appreciated what I had to say in terms of the numbers. So we're very happy about that. I'm going back to the White House now. We're going to look at the whole situation that's going on in Iran. It's really bad stuff. Minnesota is going to have to take care of itself for a little while. We have tremendous theft and fraud going on in that state because you have an incompetent governor, grossly incompetent governor, and a corrupt governor. But we'll straighten that out. But Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So,
on sanctuary cities,
and we'll act accordingly.
We will act accordingly. Our White House reporter, Tom McCullough, informed me that we have now begun striking Iran. Now, as Trump is shifting to international matters, investigative reports are uncovering even more fraud. Somali fraud scandal keeps on dripping, and it's not just daycare centers anymore. We're now learning that dozens of Somali transport companies are taking government funds while transporting no one. David Hoke visited 70 of them, and he was stunned at what he found. Let's check in with Jesse Waters.
The Minnesota fraud faucet keeps on dripping, and we're not talking daycares anymore.
When a Somali goes to the doctor, magically, they forgot how to speak English, so they need an interpreter there. So the county brings in an interpreter at $100 an hour, minimum 8 hours, to interpret what the doctor is telling the patient. And then remember, the interpreter has to get to the doctor's office or the hospital. How are they getting there? The transportation company, and then they got to get back home. And that patient had to get to the doctor's office. How? Transportation.
Oh, so how much are we paying the interpreters and their drivers?
Almost 900 of them are Somali-owned. So in the second video, Nick Shirley and I went to 16 of them. I've actually been to about 70 of them. They don't exist.
So transportation companies that transport no one. Sounds like something we should be looking into.
And he was, in that hearing, we played it the other day, he's actually talking to the Treasury Secretary Bessent. The transport company revelations fueled President Trump's direct message to Minnesota. This is where the rhetoric reaches a fever pitch. President Trump, fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming. This is what President Trump posted on Truth Social. Do the people of Minnesota really want to live in a community in which there are thousands of already convicted murderers, drug dealers, addicts, and rapists, violent release and escaped prisoners, dangerous people? Let me see if I can make that a little bit larger for you. Escaped prisoners, dangerous people from foreign mental institutions, insane asylums, and other deadly criminals too dangerous to even mention. All the patriots of ICE want to do is remove them from your neighborhood and send them back to the prisons and mental institutions from where they came. Most in foreign countries who illegally entered the U.S. through Sleepy Joe Biden's horrible open borders policy. Man, that guy really destroyed this country. Every place that we go, crime comes down. In Chicago, despite a weak and incompetent governor and mayor fighting us all the way, a big improvement was made. Thousands of criminals were removed. Minnesota Democrats love the unrest that anarchists and professional agitators are causing because it gets the spotlight off the $19 billion that was stolen by really bad and deranged people. Fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning is coming. Keep going here. Nick Sortor posting that Trump's fiery promise to Minnesota sets up his philosophical vision of American values versus fraud. Now, our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie, cheat, and scam. No, my family came here. They worked hard to see that their descendants would have a beautiful life here in the United States. They didn't suck off the welfare system. They didn't scam. They laid the bricks. They cut the lawns. They did the hard work. Here's the president.
As we liberate our country from this cultural scourge and the plague of corruption and fraud, we'll rediscover the natural energy and native spirit that truly makes America great again, like we're doing with Detroit and Michigan. If we get rid of fraud and do our job properly on the trillions that are being extorted out of our country from corrupt and incompetent governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz, we will very soon have a balanced budget, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. We're talking about massive amounts of money. Our country wasn't...
I wish you would have said Tampon Tim. That would have been great, but, you know.
Built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison, the Kellogg brothers, Alfred P. Sloan, the founder of General Motors, men who lifted up American workers and strengthened our nation beyond even belief. And we're doing the same exact thing right now. I think we're doing it even better. This is the fierce spirit of patriotic free enterprise that we're now unleashing. Once again, we are unleashing it like maybe never before.
Amen. Like never before. It's happening. From Trump's idealistic vision to boots on the ground enforcement, DHS is now making arrests. This is their post. DHS law enforcement is doing what Governor Walz and Mayor Frey have refused to do, root out the fraud and give Americans the accountability they deserve. Yesterday, during Operation Metro Surge, ICE arrested the worst of the worst, including rapists, armed robbers, and drug dealers. Federal action backing up the talk, but Trump isn't finished. He's announcing the financial scale of the war on fraud. Another urgent priority for bringing down the cost of living is stop the colossal fraud. Our country has been losing over $500 billion to fraud every single year. That's what the president says. $500 billion fraud claim leads to Trump's most specific policy change yet. No more money transfers for public assistance recipients. This is what he had to say. We'll require proof of attendance in order to receive federal funding.
We've frozen all children's payments to those states that we're talking about, and we will now require proof of attendance in order to receive federal funding for child care or any of that. How about all these child care places in Minnesota where there is no children? They go there, they get paid millions and millions of dollars. The biggest operation in all of Minnesota had no children. And we pay millions of dollars. They're scammers, they always will be. And we're getting them out, and we're not going to pay them. We're not going to pay Minnesota, right, Scott? We're not paying Minnesota any more money for any of that crap. It's a big scam. It's a giant scam run by an incompetent, crooked governor. He's an incompetent, crooked guy. And also, we're freezing any and all welfare payments going to illegal immigrants that will start effective immediately. So when illegals come into California, Gavin Newsom, they come into California, and they send us bills for people coming in. We're not paying it. So we're working on that very strongly. Just don't pay it. As Nancy Reagan would say, just say no. You remember Nancy Reagan? Just say no to drugs. It's a little more difficult than that, I guess, right? But just say no. Additionally, from this moment forward, if you're on public assistance, like almost all Somalis are, did you see where 94% of them are on public assistance? You can't wire money out of the country back to your bank account from where you came. But more importantly, we probably aren't even going to give them the money anymore, the money going to them, because of the tremendous abuse and probably illegality being perpetrated on our country. We're not going to give them the money. We're not giving them the money.
We're not giving them the money. No more. It's all getting cut off. Here's the president discussing the new DOJ division to investigate the fraud.
Last week, we announced that I'm creating a brand new division at the Department of Justice, a legal strike force led by a really tough, smart new attorney general for fraud. He's a fantastic young guy. He's so impassioned to do this properly. We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country.
Any politician. We're looking at you, Omar. We're looking at you. That's right. So here's the smoking gun. Well, Minnesota officials knew about these massive fraud schemes. They allegedly looked the other way for years. Now, Trump's team is threatening fraud against taxpayers as what it really is. Theft from every American family. And the message is crystal clear. Steal from Americans and you're gone. So the real question is whether this crackdown will expose the full scope of fraud happening nationwide, or if Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we've told you about what's happening in California. We've told you what's happening in Illinois. The investigations are only beginning. Trump is declaring war on government waste and abuse, but the establishment will fight back hard to protect the corrupt system. They've gotten rich off your tax dollars for decades, and they will not give up without a fight. This could be the beginning of the largest anti-fraud operation in American history, or it could simply get buried by bureaucratic resistance. So do you think Trump can actually drain the swamp this time? Will the deep state protect their fraud networks? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, check out the Next News Merch Shop.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.